Hey everybody, it's Christy with Off the Grid Streets, and now on Facebook and Instagram, Type 1 Grit Chick. Today we are going to talk about Type 1 diabetes and managing it with a low-carb diet. So I'm really excited to share my test results with you guys, but first I have filmed myself telling my story so you guys will know what exactly is going on and why am I talking about type 1 and test results. Why are we talking about low carb? So here is the footage I took of myself telling my story. In March of this year, 2019, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I've been meaning to start a video journal to document my journey as a type 1 diabetic. I spent the majority of my life normal, if you want to use that term, with a functioning pancreas. So this is definitely a huge shocker to me and my system and even my family. And I think that documenting it would be good for me and also maybe help others. While I was diagnosed in March of this year, 2019, the story actually goes further back to 2016 when Tegan Jewel was conceived. During my pregnancy with her, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes and needed insulin in addition to a very strict diet to control my sugars during my pregnancy. And like many other women who are diagnosed with gestational diabetes, I hoped that I would just return back to normal after giving birth, and assumed that I did. So a year goes by after having Tegan. It's November of 2017. My diet was terrible, but I was losing weight and I was urinating frequently. I was always tired and I had all of the symptoms of diabetes. So I randomly decided to check my blood sugar in November of 2017, and I was in the 400s. I don't remember the exact number, but I was in the 400s. I immediately knew at that point that I was a diabetic. I did go to the emergency room. They weren't able to do very much for me at the time. They just gave me fluids and basically said that I needed to go to a doctor and actually be diagnosed with diabetes. It didn't take long to get diagnosed with diabetes, and my doctor at the time diagnosed me with type 2 diabetes, I guess assuming that since I was an adult that I had type 2. I tried to get serious about it. I was taking pills at the time and eating low carb, and my A1C still was not coming down. So at this point he put me on insulin, a long overnight insulin. So I was taking that and I got my blood sugar down. I don't remember exactly what the A1C was, but I want to say I got it down into the 7s or the 8s, eating properly and taking my medication. I don't think I gained a whole lot of weight. I did put on about 15 pounds, I think, when I was taking care of myself. Fast forward not too long into the future where we go off the grid and we're living in an RV. Right when we first went off the grid, we did not have the solar that we have now, so we were unable to run the refrigerator, and keeping fresh vegetables and lettuce, what I was eating basically, was a lot harder. On top of all the other stresses of going off the grid and traveling, I let go of myself and I stopped giving myself the medication. I was living in denial. I was upset that I had no control over this and that it was something I was going to have to live with forever. We spent the summer traveling, and I just basically ate whatever I wanted. I was still losing weight, and my blood sugars were riding 500 high all the time. After the summer was over and we settled down in Missouri, I started to notice symptoms other than being sleepy all the time. Without changing my diet, I started to take my medication again and started to give myself insulin, the long-acting insulin, on occasion in the evening before bed if I felt like checking my blood sugar. After going to the doctor and finding out that my A1C had maintained at 10.5 after 3 months of taking it seriously, I was told by the doctor that I was going to need mealtime insulin as well. And this really concerned me and upset me. So I went home and I started to do some research about the keto diet because I had heard that it had reversed type 2 diabetes in some people. I came across some Facebook groups like Keto for Diabetics, and I was directed to videos like The Lies We've Been Told About Type 2 Diabetes by Dr. Fung, and several others. After watching The Lies That We've Been Told About Type 2 Diabetes, I was mind blown. And under the impression I was a type 2, decided I was going to take myself off of the medication and change my diet so that I could reverse my type 2 diabetes. Before doing that, I did call my doctor and make sure that I was, in fact, a type 2. I, at this point, had no clue what kind of blood work was done. I knew blood work had been drawn, but I didn't know what they had drawn. I didn't know enough about type 2 or even diabetes in general to know the difference, and I just assumed, along with the doctor, that it was adult onset, so I was type 2. After a conversation with my nurse practitioner at the doctor's office, I was advised that I was most definitely, without a doubt, a type 2 diabetic. So I proceeded to start the keto diet. Mark and I did some fasting and got started with it, and I saw some pretty good results in the beginning. My blood sugar came down and I was doing good. And then we had to take a trip to St. Louis. Mark had some work he needed to do on his truck, and we were going to go stay up with Uncle Jeffrey and Uncle Kyle while he worked on his truck. And when we got there, we had all kinds of temptations, things that I was previously and still feel addicted to, like chocolate chip cookies and candy. And I even went out to lunch with a friend and splurged on a high carb meal, all off of my meds. I didn't think that this would be that big of a deal because I had gone without my medication, without insulin, so frequently up to this point, and nothing happened to me. So I had no idea there was any type of concern. So while in St. Louis, my blood sugar is rising. I'm still trying to fast and eat low carb outside of the cheating I did, eating a cookie here and some candy there and a 500 carb meal there. I start to feel sick, and I mistake it for the flu because the day prior, Tristan was not feeling well. So I assumed I had a 24-hour bug. The sickness continued for 2 days. I had severe body aches that were only progressing as the days went on. I went about 2 days with these symptoms, and the most concerning symptom I had, aside from the frothy urination and frequent urination, I was really struggling to breathe. I had severe shortness of breath, and that only progressed up until the point where I finally told Mark I needed to go to the ER. And he drove me to Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis, and that is when they admitted me for DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, and put me into the ICU. Diabetic ketoacidosis is when you have high ketones in your body and you have high blood sugars along with that. Throughout the first 2 days of the stay, I was still under the impression I was type 2, and when I got out, I was going to reverse my type 2 diabetes. And after being moved from the ICU down to the main floor, a doctor came to me and said that I did not present as a type 2, and he believed that I was a type 1. and he wanted to run some lab work to just make sure. In addition, things were going backwards instead of forwards for my rehabilitation or recovery. So they ran the tests and confirmed that I was in fact a type 1 diabetic. This changed everything as far as how I was going to treat myself, because now I was no longer going to be able to reverse my diabetes and get myself off of medication. I was going to have to take insulin for the rest of my life, no matter how good or bad I ate. Having already had the mindset that I was going to cure my diabetes with a low-carb diet, I knew that I was going to have to continue the low-carb diet. This really got me following Dr. Bernstein a lot closer. Dr. Bernstein is also a type 1 diabetic. He's been diabetic for many, many years. He's 80 plus years old, still practicing medicine on diabetes specifically. He has several books. He's got a YouTube channel called Diabetes University. And if you have diabetes or you know somebody that has diabetes, 1 or 2, I highly recommend that you watch his channel. And get his book, The Diabetes Solution. It will change your life. Dr. Bernstein's book and what he's doing saved my life, and it's saving so many other people's lives as well. I'm a part of a group called
Type 1 Grit,
who are also following this diet, because sadly many doctors don't agree with this and will tell you that it's not safe or recommend that you eat a high-carb diet to follow the ADA guidelines. But like Dr. Bernstein says on his channel and in his book, they would have killed him by now if he would have followed what they're doing. Dr. Bernstein is the first person to test his blood sugars at home, and he has more knowledge than I believe anybody on the planet when it comes to diabetes, especially type 1 diabetes. And honestly, anything he says, I will do and follow to the best of my ability, that's for sure. For me, I have always been an emotional eater. I eat for comfort, I eat for fun, I love food, and I love sugar, and I love carbs. So following that diet has not been super easy for me. But what has been easy is the blood sugars, the less insulin I'm having to use compared to other diabetics who are eating the ADA recommended diet and needing what Dr. Bernstein would call industrial size doses of insulin. I'm using such small amounts to manage my diabetes. Even when I do cheat, it's still so much less than what others are using. Insulin, if you don't already know, is the hormone that causes weight gain. It's the hormone that tells our body to store fat. So when you're using the industrial size insulin that the doctors are recommending, you are going to gain weight, and they will tell you that. And that was one thing I was very concerned about. I don't want to put on a whole bunch of weight. So I have a doctor appointment coming up on the 6th of June, and I'm going to be documenting that as well as the results that I get back on that. I don't have a scale at home, so I don't know what I weigh right now, but I was 106 pounds when I went to my appointment in March after the DKA hospital ICU stay. So I am interested to see how much weight I have gained, because I know I've gained some. And I'm also interested to see what my A1C, that's my most important thing right now. I really like to see where my numbers are. I know I can do better, and I know I need to dig deeper. So I know that's coming, and I'm preparing myself for that. All right. So I had my doctor's appointment.
And they are inside your head. You got a voice that says you won't get past this one. You won't win your freedom. It's like a constant war, and you wanna settle that score, but you're bruised and beaten, and you feel defeated. This goes same set match. Time to put it in your past. Oh, feel the winter leaving. It's redemption season. Long live the young at heart. Cheers to a brand new start. We're revived and breathing to live a life of freedom. Oh, to everyone who's hit their limit, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. And even when you think you're finished, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. Keep on fighting. Out of the dark into the light. It's not over. Hope is rising. Never give in, never give up. It's not over.
My A1C was 10.5 at the time of my diagnosis of type 1, and drumroll please, I brought it down to 6.9 using the low carb diet. So I have to say thank you to the type 1 grit community, to Dr. Bernstein for his lifelong dedication to helping diabetics with low carb, and his passion for letting people know about it. And I'm super excited to bring that down even further. So my weight did go up, which I knew, and I was prepared for, because again, insulin tells our body to store fat, and I hadn't had any insulin in my body for so long. So I did go up to 126 pounds. So that is a 20-pound weight gain. That's another reason why I think low carb is going to be super important for me. Make sure that I don't gain too much weight, because if I'm using a lot of insulin to cover my meals, even if I'm eating low fat, if I'm having to cover a lot of carbs with high insulin, I'll still experience weight gain. So I'm hoping that that 20 pounds, and that was right at my goal. I wanted to be 125. I'm right there at my goal. I hope that I can maintain that from this point on, and even like maybe take off about 5 pounds. 120 I think might be good too. So anyways, there's that, and I really hope that you guys will follow me on Facebook and Instagram. So if you want to follow this journey, just keep watching our Off the Grid Streets channel. Subscribe today. I will be posting these video updates for the Type 1 Grit Chick in a playlist called Type 1 Grit Chick, and I'll notify everybody on my Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you subscribe to the Off the Grid Streets channel and press that bell, and you'll get notifications as well there. So thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time.